I was only going to have one job when I grew up. My friends and I would bind sticks together like swords and pretend that we were centurions, defending and extending the mighty Roman Empire in which we lived. My uncle, he was in the Legion, and he would tell us stories of wild places and wild adventures and wilder enemies. Our imaginations, they ran, well, wild. There's no greater quest in the heart of a boy than to bravely be himself. My name is Alessandro Lucius Gelato, and I am a soldier of Rome. After finishing basic, we were to receive our posts. We were still green as, but our uniforms and weapons as Roman soldiers gave us all the confidence of a decorated battle veteran. We wondered where we would go, North Africa, the Middle East, or maybe to Northern Europe to dispel the wicked barbarian hordes. The friends that I'd made in basic training all wanted the same thing as me. We wanted to be on the front line, at the edge of the empire. Be that thin red line between civilization and darkness, protectors of the realm. We were ready for anything. As we heard the list of posts being read out, each man cheered for the other as we received post after post of exciting faraway places. Then I heard my name. That split-second pause between hearing my name called and then hearing my post, it seemed like an hour. Alessandro Gelato, Judea. A cheer rose up, but it was cut short when everyone looked at each other quizzically. Judea? There hadn't been a major battle there in my lifetime. That was where retired generals went on vacation. The group laughed aloud when they realized where I had been posted. Enjoy the holiday, ice cream! I grabbed my satchel and stormed off. Little did I know Judea would be the location for the greatest battle in the history of the world. The Battle of the Human Heart. Centurion Alessandro Maxima was the soldier that everyone wanted to serve under. He was actually a decorated battle veteran. He lost an eye in the Battle of the Teutoburg Forest against the barbarians. He was the lone survivor of 3 legions. It was a dark day for Rome, but Alessandro's story had become legend. He was a soldier that could not be killed. He refused to be promoted any higher than a centurion because he did not want to leave the front line along with his men. I was actually named after him, and now I was to serve under him on the Jerusalem front line. Judea wasn't sounding too bad after all. It was a quiet front and was more of a peacekeeping mission. Our job was to suppress local upstarts before they gathered momentum. This was our main objective. Quick, intelligent strikes on people of interest, and their small militias was the new modern warfare. In Jerusalem, zealots and local criminals were the main concern. I like the idea of targeting known criminals in a reasonably peaceful city, as opposed to flattening local villages in the Germanic forests. Young soldiers of Rome, welcome! Centurion Alessandro had prepared a humble but sincere welcome dinner for the new attachment, myself included. It was not the regular pomp and egotism that I'd come to expect from Roman parties. This was a simple meal around a common table, and the hosts were really kind and hospitable. This was very different to the kind of man that I'd heard of, the cruel oppressor who had survived the Teutoburg Forest. After the bread, the centurion stood up to speak. Dear guests, you may have heard of my reputation as the hero of Teutoburg Wood, but this is not the man who stands before you today. He had my attention. The centurion continued. Some months ago, Philip, my kindly house servant, fell ill and became paralyzed. Philip has served our house and my family honestly and diligently ever since he was a boy. We have come to love him, and he is a part of our family, and to think that he would die of an illness grieved us greatly. I did not know what to do. Then I received word that there was a traveling teacher who was in Capernaum currently. This teacher was able to heal the sick with just a word. So in my grief state, I left for Capernaum instantly, and it did not take long to track him down. And in my uniform, people moved aside very quickly. As I came face to face with this teacher, the only response that I felt was correct was to kneel before him. I held his hands and reported my situation. He asked me, should I come to Jerusalem to heal Philip? I said, no. You only need to say the words, Lord, and my servant will be healed. I know what it is to command authority, and if indeed you have authority over sickness, it will be done. The centurion was tearful at this point, and he said, Jesus responded to me with more grace than I have ever felt. It was a mysterious, undeserving grace. He even said, I have not found faith like this in all of Israel. I left there, amazed, swearing to myself that when I returned, if I found Philip well, I would retell this story of the teacher at every occasion. And when I arrived home to Jerusalem, it was late, but there, standing in the doorway, ready and well, was our dear Philip. I could not hold back the tears as I embraced him. The teacher had done it. As I reflect on the kindness and the goodness that this gracious gift of healing brought to my home, I am becoming a changed man, more patient, more joyful, and more respectful of those around me. While we cannot control the orders that are given to us from Rome, we can control the way we carry them out. We can treat the local people with the same respect and honor that we would like to be treated with. We can treat them in the interest of peace. Under my leadership, this is how you will serve. At this point, the centurion retreated from the table, and his second stepped up to his place. He gave our orders. I was on crucifixion detail. We received a lengthy discourse about how the centurion was petitioning to Rome to absolve this horrible punishment. He kept getting the same response. Crucifixion is the most proven way of sustaining the Pax Romana, that is, peace across the empire. So I grabbed a few things off the food table, put them into my satchel, and I walked out, headed for my post. This is an excellent piece, said the soldier as he rolled the fabric between his thumb and fingers. Al, check it out. So I came over after checking that the crosses were well built and that we had enough nails and ropes. I hated being on crucifixion detail. It was intolerably cruel. I suppose it kept the peace on the edges of the empire, but I just wanted to make it as humane as possible, if that was even possible. I hated the thought of those poor crims hanging there any longer than they needed to be. The other soldiers were examining a tunic that they'd taken from the criminal they called Jesus. It was flawless, woven entirely out of one thread, completely seamless, and it was a beautiful fabric, fit for a king. Whoever had made it loved him very much, I thought to myself. Let's cast lots for it, Leo announced. It's too good to chuck it. Must have been my lucky day. I rolled up the garment and pushed it into my satchel. Come on, I said, let's put the poor buggers up. We had 3 to do that day. I remember the first one, he was a spiteful sort, which kind of made it easier, but still no more pleasurable. You tune out of their shouts of pain eventually, but you never forget the sound of wrist and ankle bones cracking and popping as you drive the nails through. The second, he was fearful. He was so scared and he was begging for his life. Pax Romana, I thought to myself. It helped to limit my compassion. The third was beaten unrecognizable, the poor soul. I wondered what he'd done to deserve this. It's as if the gods themselves were punishing him. One of his eyes was so badly swollen and bloody that it was fully closed over. But through the other one, he looked into mine. No one had ever looked at me like that before. He saw me, like he really saw me. It's like he could see who I was, not what I was. I had the nails and hammer in hand. I doubted even doing it, but his glance cut through and he nodded and blinked at me and he whispered to me, "It's okay, this is my cup." So I brought the hammer down. We continued to guard the criminals after the crosses were stood up. Apparently, the one they called Jesus was the leader of a rebellion, but the only people who had come to mourn him was a few women and a gentleman that kept weeping and crying out, "Thank you, Lord, I love you." Their emotion was so powerful, cosmic even. I was really starting to question myself. Had I done something wrong here? I started having flashbacks of things that I'd done, shoving over my little sister and pushing poor people over with my shield to move them out of the way. It's the hate that I felt for people who weren't like me and the pride that fueled it was all bubbling up to the surface. I looked at the man on the cross and I was reminded of the centurion's story, and it struck me that this could be the same man. The man who kindly healed the servant Philip was now being mourned. This man had done no wrong. He was no enemy of the empire. He was innocent, and I nailed him to a cross. I approached him and immediately began thinking of a plan to get him down and to escape. But with that kind, knowing eye, he looked into me and a sincere, low, husky tone said, "Father, forgive him. He does not know what he has done." I could tell he was just moments from death, and all the emotion welled up in me, and I shouted long and hard, "No!" And at that very moment, a thunderous rift tore across the blue sky and it became black as night. I grabbed my satchel and I ran. I deserted my post and I ran. I ran and I did not stop. I ran. I ran out of the city, headed for the wilderness to the east of the Jordan. I was running from the army. I was running from the murder of the innocent teacher. I was running from my past. I was running for my life. As I came to the bottom of the Kidron Valley, I saw a small campfire with just two men sitting beside it. It was cold and it had become night, even though it had been dark since midday. I approached cautiously, but could see that they were wearing Hebrew shawls, so I assumed that they weren't robbers and they weren't any threat to me. "Hello?" I quietly offered. They jumped up, startled, and shouted back, "What do you want, soldier of Rome?" "No, please," I stammered. They saw that I was weaponless, and they looked confused. "I'm running away," I said. "I've done something terrible." "What have you done, sir?" they inquired. I broke down. I fell to my knees. I nailed an innocent man to a cross. I felt their hands upon me, and I wished that they would just kill me there. But they helped me up. They took me to sit with them by the fire. They wrapped me in their shawls to help keep me warm. The man you have crucified is Jesus. He's our master, and he forgives you. He told us that this would happen, and he told us to come and wait here, for you to come and to let you know that you are loved anyway. Jesus taught us that there is nothing that can separate us from his love, not even death. The men mentioned that they were John and James, the sons of Zebedee, and proceeded to recall memory after memory of the times they shared with Jesus. Some of them were miracles and some were healings, and so I told them the story of the centurion's servant, and they remembered being there. But mainly, they recounted the way he had made them feel, that they were loved, that they were known, and that they had purpose. They invited me to come and wait with them. They were going to hide just outside the city because Jesus had told them that he would rise again in 3 days. And they believed that he would do this, so they were waiting in a safe place for it to happen. I was interested and I decided that I would stay with them, at least for 3 days. "Is there anything I can do to help?" I asked. "Got anything to eat?" said James. I pulled my satchel over to me and I paused for a second. I moved Jesus' tunic aside, and from my small bag, I produced a loaf of bread and a small flask of wine. "Will this do?" I queried. John and James looked at each other with a knowing smile.
What a fantastic story from Andy. The thing that I love about stories is the way that it connects with our emotions. This Easter, I wonder how that story made you feel. I wonder how it connected with you. We're going to take a moment to have communion together. And as we have the bread and we drink the wine, I want you to reflect on what Jesus has done for you and how that makes you feel this Easter. The Apostle Paul was great at giving instructions on how to do faith well. I'm going to read from 1 Corinthians as Paul speaks to us about how to do communion. The same night in which he was handed over, he took bread and gave thanks. Then he distributed it to his disciples and said, "Take it and eat your fill. It is my body which is given for you. Do this to remember me." He did the same with a cup of wine after supper and said, "This cup seals the new covenant with my blood. Drink it, and whenever you drink this, do it in remembrance of me." Whenever you eat this bread and drink this cup, you are retelling the story, proclaiming our Lord Jesus' death until he comes. So why don't you take a moment right now, take your bread and the wine or your juice and have a quiet moment to reflect on the Easter story.
This is a story like no other, none that ever was or will be again. This is a story of Jesus, who gave it all to set me free. Fully men, yet fully God. He walked the earth just as we are. He ate the bread that we now eat and breathed the air that we now breathe. Oh Lord, how you've carried me, and oh Lord, how you set me free. 'Cause your love is like no other, your love is like no other, your love is like no other, I believe. Your love is like no other, your love is like no other, your love is like no other, I believe. Still the seas where waves once raged, you spoke through the storm and we were saved. You carried up the cross for all, and it's on your precious name, Jesus, we will. An empty grave held by your love, you rose to heaven above. Your love is truth, your promise stands. Now my life is in your hands. Oh Lord, how you carried me, and oh Lord, how you set me free. Your love is like no other, your love is like no other, your love is like no other, I believe. Your love is like no other, your love is like no other, your love is like no other, I believe. no other, and you love me like no other. Again and again, again and again. Your love is like no other, 'cause you love me like no other, and you love me like no other again. This is the story of Jesus. This is the story. This is his story. This is the story of Jesus.
Thanks so much for joining us today on Lighthouse Online. If this is your first time, we'd love to say hello, so why don't you click the connect button and one of our team will be in touch with you during the week. At Lighthouse, we love to pray, and we would love to pray for your family this week. You can go on the website and click the same connect button and let us know how we can be praying for you. Thank you so much for your regular and generous giving. It's because of people like you that we can keep loving and caring for our community. The ways to give are on the screen now. There's no better time to join a Connect group. Such a great place to grow your faith and your friendship. If you'd like to be in a Connect group, then please send us an email and we'll find the perfect group for you. We have some great resources for you to explore faith as a family this Easter. So after you're finishing watching here, jump over to our kids resources on the website. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great Easter.